Welcome to Marshmallow Reads. I'm Marcy, and today I have 7 books to talk to you about, plus one extra that I DNF'd pretty early on. Maybe you're into it, but I was not. These books, technically, I read in February, and it is almost April, but it's fine. We're gonna talk about them. Before we get too far into this, go ahead and give this video a like for me, and consider subscribing. Go ahead and click that button if you are so inclined. This one was a gamble for me. This is Matrix by Lauren Groff. I'd heard about this from like a couple different videos, and like it's 12th century nuns in England, and it's following this woman who was a real woman in history, Marie something, but she was originally from France, like I think somewhat high nobility or something like that, connections to the current Queen of England. I don't fully understand what the actual history part of this was, but I just know this French woman was sent to England to go be a nun because she didn't have any other prospects or something. And like I said, this isn't the normal type of book that I would pick up, you know, just on my own whim. Like 12th century nuns, maybe some lesbianism thrown in there. There was some, which was interesting, I guess, but I don't know. The writing was creative and just well done, and that part was good. Like the actual act of reading the book was enjoyable, but I kept waiting for a plot to happen or like something to happen. It does follow Marie's life. I think she's probably like late teens, maybe early 20s when she first gets to this convent and, is forced to join, and like this is her life now, and she has to figure out what that means for her. And apparently the real Marie would write a bunch, and those were saved, and now we have them. And I did enjoy getting to see Marie grow up into this role of abbess and seeing how she shaped the convent and her image, and like, I don't know, like helping other girls from families who couldn't afford to do anything with them, so she took them in and gave them meaningful lives, and that was cool. And how eventually she had this basically army of spies working for her in her community, and I forgot who these invaders were, but someone decided to target their convent. I don't know, some lame rebels that decided to target them because they were women and an easy target, but because of the spy system and whatever system that Marie built up, they were able to defend the convent from these troublemakers. So that part was neat. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, almost 2 months after reading it, not much has stuck with me. Like, it was a fancy writing, but just somewhere along the way, the narrative lost me. I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. If you're more into like historical fiction kind of stuff, maybe you'll like this one more than I did. Thankfully, the next book I read was The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This was a wonderful read for me. It took me a little while to get through, but the whole journey was fun. This is a fantasy novel inspired by the history and epics of India and like that subcontinent area. So that was really cool to read. Like, oh, I wish I could smell this book and taste it as well, because like, I don't know, it was just so vivid and warm, and I don't know, it really sucked me in. So the basic story is surrounding 2 characters. So first is Priya. She is currently a handmaiden, just kind of working low-tier jobs because that's all she can do. This is not where she started though. She started off living in this small community. Priya grew up in this loving, incredibly supportive environment with the other magic users. So this temple that's built on this large hill mound area has these underground pools called the Deathless Waters, and the people of the temple, once they're ready, they can be submerged in these deathless waters and hopefully come back out. And once they do, they are considered reborn and have magical powers. And there's like 3 different tiers. There's like the once born, twice born, thrice born, I don't remember. And Priya, she was very little when something happened, to end this group's existence, basically. And she had gone through the Deathless Waters once, so she is a once-born and has like small magical powers, you know? And the more times you go through this process, the stronger and more powerful you become. But the risks also increase. So, you know, there's that balance there. And these peoples are also connected to this mystical, magical, spooky forest. It reminds me a lot of the Lost Woods in like Breath of the Wild, that kind of thing. And there are these ancient trees that are infused with like holiness and magic that can help heal a curse, a disease that has been plaguing the land. And I believe the ancient Yaksa, this group of ancient powerful beings that this people has been derived from, they were lost, and they used to be the ones to take care of this forest, but since they're no longer around, the forest is starting to decay and lose its resources. It's very much needed resources, and I really liked that tie-in to conservationism and the importance of keeping these native indigenous populations alive and thriving in their own way and however they wish to be in their land, to protect that land, and you know, that stuff along with it. I really liked that lens. But then of course, I've only talked about one of the main characters in this book. The other one, Malini, she is a princess. But at the very beginning of this book, she's in a bit of a pickle. She has two brothers. The eldest, who was supposed to ascend to the throne, decided to denounce that and become like a priest, basically. And he's kind of useless. Everyone thinks he's gonna be the next emperor, but like, no. And then her other brother, he is an absolute tyrant, dictator, awful piece of garbage. And he is threatened by Malini and her just inherent power that she imbues. And he sends her off. He initially tried to kill her in a fire. Instead, her two like best friends died in her place, and she got sent off to live on the Catriona, this like temple area that Priya is working at. And during her time there, Malini is just imprisoned by herself, segregated from everyone else. But eventually, oh no, she needs a handmaiden, you know, to like help her do stuff. And Priya gets selected, and from the very beginning, I knew these two were gonna have great chemistry, and they did. And they, you know, it wasn't like insta-love or anything. They just slowly got to know each other and understand each other's situations, and just through the situation and circumstances surrounding everything going on, because there's like a war breaking out, and like, you know, the dictator brother is being an asshole somewhere and invading, doing stuff. So these two end up escaping together, and like, oh gosh, okay. I had such a blast reading this one. I cannot wait to read the sequel. I believe it's coming out this summer at some point, so I will be getting my hands on that one. And yeah, I can't wait to see more of Priya and Malini. I think they're adorable together, and they're wonderful characters on their own too. Like, just seeing their progression from where they started at the beginning, and like, oh, it's gonna be great. I just burped. Okay. It's gonna be pretty great. And I haven't even talked about any of the like 3+ main side characters in this one that gives it a really good, I don't know, flavor and complexity, because there's some antagonists in here that aren't just straight up evil or villains. They're trying to do what they think is right, and they, you know, in their own way, and you get to see how that butts up against Malini and Priya's outlook on the world and stuff. And I could keep going. I don't necessarily remember all the details, otherwise I would keep going, but yeah, check this one out. Oh, I completely forgot. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. I hope that was pretty obvious in how much I'm gushing about it. The next book I picked up was Fuzz by Mary Roach. This one I had just been seeing all over the place, like a bunch of people talking about it. It is a non-fiction book that is talking about the many ways in which nature breaks the law and what those things look like. And I love the cover. Like, that was enough to catch my attention. And then just like hearing that plot synopsis, I was like, yeah, give me, I want to know more. And did I listen to, no, I think I read it. But it sounded like it could be a really interesting like podcast series as well. That's kind of like why I was interested. One of the first stories that Mary Roach talks about is how, I believe in like a part of Colorado, maybe like in like a ski area part of it, there are, issues with bears because they're living in a very natural area. Like, yes, there are towns, there are stores, restaurants, homes, all that stuff. But obviously, there's also a lot of wildlife in that area. And because of its close proximity to wildlife, there's issues. And specifically, the bears in that area have gotten very accustomed to having just a bunch of free food laying around left by the humans. In some cases, it can be dumpsters outside of restaurants with like just piles and piles of free pizza or whatever ingredients. Or it could just be normal people's homes, their trash bins. There's a lot of food and they know where to find it. One solution to this problem was like trying to find a trash can that was bear proof but also allowed humans to use it. But there's like an overlap in human and bear intelligence. Like there's no good mechanism or lock or whatever that keeps bears out but allows humans to use it, because there's definitely going to be some humans that are too dumb to use it and some bears that are too smart to be deterred by it. And I find that very funny. Mostly because I don't have bears in my backyard. It's not an issue that I have to deal with, but I think it's funny. And because these bears are so used to associating humans with food, some of them will be so bold as to break into people's homes and raid their kitchens. Like, they don't mess with anything else. They're not necessarily destructive. They just go to the food. So, I don't know. It's just, I like thinking about how humans are just slightly smarter animals and how when other smart animals interact with us, we don't always know how to deal with it. Ooh, I also really liked, there was a chapter dealing with CRISPR gene editing. I like getting to hear about it, and it seems like a really neat system and method of gene editing that is, I don't know, it's pretty neat. I like seeing other people talk about it and how it can be implemented in different ways. In this case, the researchers were trying to basically create a strain of mice that can only produce male offspring. So the idea was to introduce it to the wild mice population so that eventually, after, some number of generations, you're only going to have male mice, not enough females to go around, they just die off. And I guess that's cool if you want to get rid of your massive mice problem, but I don't know. Seems like a lot of work and, I don't know, mean to the mice. Like, it's not their fault. Like, and that's where it gets iffy for me. Like, I don't know. I worry that there aren't enough regulations involved in testing and stuff. Like, scientists are very curious and we like finding out what we can do and what we can't and, troubleshooting and stuff. But when that information and technique can get, into the wrong hands, like the government, I get worried. So luckily, I think we're a bit far off from this being an actual reality, but maybe not that far off. Yeah. I really enjoyed this one. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a pretty good nonfiction book and just a entertaining read. Next up is a murder mystery thriller, Lightseekers by Femi Kayode. I really enjoyed this one. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. I listened to this one on audiobook and I loved hearing the Nigerian English accent. Shout outs to Carrie Height. Mwah, fantastic job. forensic psychologist Dr. Taiwo is hired to crack the case of the murder of 3 university students in a city in contemporary Nigeria. And he is not personally connected to the case, but his friend who hired him is a dad of one of the murdered students. And it's been like a year or something after the murders, and he desperately wants to figure out who is behind it, because the police never really got anywhere with it. I was initially hooked by the story because it's thought that a cult is involved in the murders, and you kind of figure out how correct and incorrect that assumption was. And like it definitely went like some weird like right angles to whatever guess that I had at the time. It was very different than what I expected. And even when, like, I would say there's at least 2 big twists in this mystery, and after the first one I was like, oh my god, is it really going to be this thing that I'm thinking of? But no, it's even more complex, and I don't know, it's there's a lot going on. Like, there are so many facets to this story, to this mystery, including mob dynamics, anti-homosexual legislation, drug dealing, religious tensions, and more. Like, it was just so engrossing in so many different ways. Like, every single chapter, part of a chapter, would address a different part of the story, and like, oh, I don't know. I had a blast reading this one. It was so well constructed, great mystery. And I liked that our main character, Dr. Taiwo, didn't feel just like an empty detective vessel to carry us through the story. He had legitimate thoughts and feelings about everything going on. He would call his wife and children on the phone and like have that interaction, and it didn't just feel like filler. And with, he talks to a lot of people involved in these murders, and he feels legitimate empathy for basically everyone involved, even if they're in the wrong. To a point, After so many lackluster mysteries in the past year, this was one shining example of what a good mystery thriller can look like. So I'm very happy I decided to finally pick this one up. And like I said, it's going to keep you guessing until the end. Like, you can probably figure out who did it, but the motive is elusive. And that part was very fun. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This next book has been on my TBR for ages, and I finally got to it. This is Uzumaki by Junji Ito. So if you don't know by now, in this novel, it's like a 3-parter that got smushed into one. That's the version I read. It takes place in this like sleepy seaside Japanese town where everything seems totally fine until the citizens start to get basically infected by spirals, or the idea of spirals. And at the very beginning, it's like pretty chill, nothing too worrying. It's just like people randomly getting obsessed with snail shells, or like how the leaves get picked up by the air and like swirled around, that kind of stuff. But then as the chapters continue, these obsessions become more and more frightening and take on some pretty wild shapes, like literally, to a point where you could say that the situation in this town was really spiraling out of control. Yeah, I'll see myself out. Yeah. Junji Ito is a lover of physical horror, a lot of gore going on, body horror, and like I can deal with some of that. But by the end of this one, I really felt like I'm good. Thank you, Junji Ito, for the experience. I think I don't necessarily need to read another of your stories, at least for like a while. Like, I need a good long buffer for this one. But ultimately, I was able to get through it with plenty of breaks. I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Pretty good. Happy I finally read it. Good horror if you're, okay with some of the more nauseating images, I would say. Like, yeah, check it out if you can. I did. So after the actual story ends, there's also a few like panels of the author talking about how in researching for this novel and like writing it, he himself ended up kind of falling into the spiral and becoming obsessed with it. It's like, it's funny and weird and quirky. Like, I would encourage you to read that part too. So you know how I just said that the Lightseekers was a great shining example of what a good mystery thriller looks like? Here's one of a bad one, I would say. Don't read this one. I mean, maybe do... I don't know. I'll let you make your own decision. This is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. I picked it up because I saw a bunch of people raving about how good it was and how spooky and mysterious and engrossing the mystery was. But it's the same twist in every other book. Like, it does nothing special. I mean, there's a certain POV in this book that is a cat. And that was kind of funny and weird, and I guess different from other mystery books that play on this trope. Like, I want to talk about it, but I don't want to do spoilers, so I think I'm going to save this one for my mystery rant video in the future, because, dude, I was trying so hard to pay attention to this audiobook and, like, really try to, like, engross myself in the story and, like, no, it's the same thing every time. And it's just not interesting. And I hated the main character. Like, I feel bad because he had an abusive mom and she sucked and, like, did weird things to him and now he's weird. But it was so boring. I, like, have no notes on this. I really don't. Like, I tried, but it's just the same book every time. And again, I don't want to post spoilers, but if you read this, you understand how it's the same as basically every other mystery twist thing that we've seen in the last few years. Okay, yeah, I just checked my Goodreads rating. I gave this one a 2. It barely deserves that many stars. I would definitely skip this one. Should I even give a plot synopsis? Fine. This is a story of a serial killer and a stolen child and revenge and death. Woo! I just want to be done with this one. I just don't care. Okay, now that we're done with that one, on to the last book that I actually finished in February. This is A Song of Wraith and Ruins by Roseanne A. Brown. This is a young adult fantasy novel set in a world inspired by the mythology of West and North Africa. And I really liked the world building. I liked the characters. I think the plot was okay. Like, I really, really wanted to love this one, but it just ended up being fine for me. I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it's probably closer to a 3 for me, but, like, the world itself was really, really cool. Like, I would love to see this get adapted into, like, a movie, animated or not. Like, I think it would be beautiful and wonderful. But there was just something about the story that didn't catch me. Maybe because it is a YA and not, like, a full adult fantasy. The story centers around our 2 main characters that end up being our main, like, love interests, you know? The first one is Princess Karina, who is currently living in her very fancy palace in the capital city of Zoran. And she is getting ready along with her family and, like, everyone else in, like, the city and country for the massive yearly festival of Solstaja. In this society, instead of having your normal astrological sign system, it instead is based on the day of the week that you were born. And depending on what day it is, it aligns you with a specific element. So, like, water, light, air, earth, that kind of stuff. And for this festival, everyone comes together. Is it yearly? I don't think so. It might actually be every 50 years. But anyway, it's a huge festival and everyone comes together and there's all these different challenges and games. It's mostly focusing on 7 different main fighters, warriors, one for each of the different alignments. And the winner gets this huge prize that only the royalty know of, and they tell them at the last minute, and it's like, oh, what a surprise. And like, it's cute, you know? It's like a tournament arc of an anime, but in a very cool world. And I really liked the magic system in this world too. Not everyone has powers, and if you do, you definitely want to keep that hidden because of how that is perceived by the greater society. But anyway, if you do have magical powers, then they are linked to your sign, to your elemental alignment, and that is pretty cool. So it's kind of like, you know, the element bending of Avatar, but, you know, given its own imagining based on these Western and North African myths. So yeah, you know, besides the details of the world were what was most interesting to me. At some point, oh wait, I forgot the other guy. And then our other main character, Malik. And then our other main character, Malik, he is from a war-torn part of this country that is absolutely, I don't know, it's like the bottom of the totem pole, absolute worst situation of everyone in this country. And he likes this festival because it's like the one time where he gets to forget all of his worries about his normal everyday life and kind of like party it up. Except on his way to the capital city with his 2 sisters, the youngest one, Nadia, she gets kidnapped by this demon guy. The only way for Malik to get his sister back is for him to enter this tournament, win, and kill Princess Karina. So, you know, you got that sort of like conflicted feelings, romance, sort of stuff going on, which is cute. I liked it. But I don't know, I really, really enjoyed the details of this world and how I liked the world a lot, and I liked the magic system a lot, and how the like gods and stuff interact with the humans of this world and try to get them to do their bidding. But I don't know, the tournament was just like a basic tournament. I don't know, I'm kind of tired of them. I've seen them done too many times, and there was just something about the YA-ness. I did not say anus, I promise. The YA aspects of this story that just kind of put me off. And I did end up reading the second book. I'll tell you more about that in my next wrap-up video, but like, I liked it, but I wanted to like it more. So even though the story wasn't necessarily for me, I do think you should check it out. At least, you know, check it out from your library, give it a shot. I do want to support Roseanne Brown because I didn't, you know, 100% love what she did here, but I'm very interested to see what she does next. And if she ever does any adult stuff, I would be very down. So yeah, check it out. I need to stop picking up so many YA novels because my hit rate is pretty bad with them, at least right now. Like, I need to chill a little bit. I tried The Kindred by Alechia Dow. The cover. Like, I know I am a sucker for a good cover, even if I'm not 100% sure about the story and stuff. But in this case, the story sounded really interesting. So, in this, like, I don't know, sci-fi world, there are a bunch of different planets that people can live on, and this was the weird part. This society of a bunch of different worlds decided to fix humanity's problems by creating the Kindred system. And it is basically the mental linking of 2 different people who are born basically at the same time or close to it. And I don't know how they do it, some sci-fi reason. They are able to talk to each other through their minds, even though they can be on like different planets and stuff. And the thought behind this is, what is it? Linking 2 minds to ensure each and every person would be seen and heard, no matter how rich or poor. I did not like this system because, you know, you're just getting paired with a random person. And just because you always have someone to talk to does not mean you are being seen or heard by your government, you know, the system that is the most responsible for your everyday life. So I don't know. And the person you're linked to isn't even like a therapist. It's not even free like counseling or anything like that. It's just like a chat room. I don't understand. But you only ever get to talk to one person. And I understand like it creates this bond and it's special and romance happens. And oh God, I don't know. I dropped this at 5%. And I ended up looking up the spoilers, and I think I would have been so mad if I continued with this book. So I'm happy I didn't. Yeah. That's all I have to say. It's not much, but I figured I'd throw this one in here. Okay, so this month was okay. I had some good, some okay, and then a couple of very questionable ones in there, but you know, it's how it goes. All right, that is going to be it for me. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Do something nice for yourself, like DNFing that book that you've been really struggling to get through, or do something nice for others and give them a legitimately good recommendation that they would enjoy to read. But either way, I hope you all have a wonderful week,